This evening, we are joined by Dr. Alexandra Jones, an assistant professor of practice in history and anthropology at Goucher College, as well as president of the Society of Black Anthropologists. She has been an educator for 16 years and is here to talk with us about Archaeology in the Community, Inc., and how they approach youth education, as well as their current and future programs. So thank you for joining us, Dr. Jones.
No problem. I'm happy to be here. So I have a little bit of I have a PowerPoint. I didn't know how informal or formal you wanted to be, so I'm going to start out just kind of explaining what community archaeology is, how it's sustainable archaeology, how we at AITC, which is a DMV-based archaeology nonprofit, do sustainable and community archaeology. And as I'm going through things, like she said, if you have a question, you can drop it in the chat. But I kind of wanted to give like a brief overview of some of the projects and things we've done so that you can kind of understand how we approach things. And then afterwards, we can kind of just talk as much as you like, and you can ask questions and kind of brainstorm anything that you have. So with that said, I'll get started. All right. Here we go.
Okay, now we can see it.
Okay.
There you go. You're good.
All right. And no notes.
No notes.
Okay. All right. So she said, I'm Dr. Alexandra Jones. I'm a historical archaeologist. I practice specifically community archaeology, and I do it in a very sustainable way. So I'll kind of just begin this talk by talking about what community archaeology is, and then discuss some of the things that AITC has done. Sorry. There we go. Okay. So community archaeology varies from project to project, and this is to be expected in a technique that has emerged more or less independently in projects all over the world, and which by nature must be highly reflexive and responsive to the particular archaeological site and its associated communities. There are, however, some factors common to all community archaeology projects, and that's an emphasis on polyvocality and genuine two-way dialogue between archaeologists and the affected public, and an investment in empowering involved communities in political, social, and/or material ways. So an archaeological site and its representative histories generally has more than one community, which can lay historical claim to it. And this is what makes community archaeology a challenging experience. As an archaeologist seeking to incorporate the community in all aspects of the project, one must address and recognize all of the communities involved, which can be complicated if there are communities that feel cultural connection to heritage that are not officially connected to, in the historical narrative. An archaeologist has to be open to the challenges he, she, or them will face while trying to truly collaborate. For example, not all communities want to be involved in bringing up their past. And so this is one of the problems that we encounter when we do this work, is being able to work with communities and also respect what it is that they want told versus what they don't want told. Because of the emphasis on collaboration, community archaeology is deeply frustrating, extremely time-consuming, humbling in ways you won't believe, and challenging in unanticipated ways. But the end product is extremely rewarding. This form of archaeology creates an opportunity to ask questions of the past which may not have been considered or celebrated if not for the dialogue surrounding archaeological heritage. It creates an avenue for communities to ask questions of the past that are relevant to their present and questions that can empower silenced communities. So my approach to community archaeology has been community empowerment through my research. That's important because as the founder of AITC, it's one of the things that I tend to ground a lot of our work in and a lot of our projects in. Community empowerment refers to the process of enabling communities to increase control of their lives. Communities are groups of people that may or may not be spatially connected, but who share common interests, concerns, and or identities. These communities could be local, national, international, with specific or broad interests. And empowerment refers to the process by which people who gain control over the factors and decisions that shape their lives. It is this process by which they increase their assets and attributes and build capacities to gain access, partners, networks, and or a voice in order to gain control. And enabling applies that people cannot be empowered by others. They can only empower themselves to acquire more of the power's different forms. It assumes that people are their own assets, and the role of the external agent, the archaeologist, is just to be a catalyst to facilitate or accompany the community in acquiring their power. So while engaging in archaeology, I do this in a sustainable way. So what does that mean? Because the word sustainable is used in a variety of ways. When I state I practice sustainable archaeology, I mean I practice archaeology that takes into account the social and environmental impacts, addresses the needs of stakeholders while accounting for capacity building within local communities. Okay. So, sustainable archaeology. Community stakeholders are partners in the formation of the research design, which means that if we're going in to do archaeological research, one of the first things I do is engage with that community, ask them what they want to know, ask them what they want to learn, tell them what our capabilities are as archaeologists are, what we can find out, what our limitations are, but also what are the possibilities. Development in harmony with the ecological process, so conservation, protection of natural resources. Oftentimes when we conduct these projects, I'm thinking about what is the minimal amount of damage we can do? How do we not, one of the problems that we're starting to have is curation, artifacts. What are some creative ways we can deal where we're not digging everything up? Sometimes things are best kept in ground and are actually protected in the ground. So if the project is not one in which something is being built or something is being disturbed, we try to find out what's the most minimally invasive way to learn about the site without actually disturbing the ecology, without digging up trees, without cutting out grass. Also thinking about some of these things cause erosion because when you completely clear an area, it stops, it basically creates an area where, for example, I work on island. If we're cutting down trees and bushes, when hurricanes come through, the lack of vegetation allows the hurricane winds and flooding to erode and move things. So kind of thinking about that as we're digging. Cultural heritage stewardship and preservation, thinking about who's going to maintain the information, who are the stewards, are there digital archives that we can put this information, are there other ways that we can share all of this with a larger community versus just having one group? Is there a way that instead of giving a report at a conference, or publishing an archaeological publication, can I do this in a lay magazine? Can I be creative with my writing so that I can submit this to newspapers and more people can get access to this information? But also, how are we preserving these items as we're moving along? And the last is, training local stakeholders in archaeology and heritage practice. This allows us to help community members be their own stewards, where they don't necessarily need us at every aspect. having and training community members to be monitors, cultural monitors for their community when archaeology is taking place, because they have been trained by archaeologists. So they know if they see a construction worker doing something wrong, they can then report to the state archaeologist. Training people on how to do heritage preservation, conservation, so that when items are returned to communities, they're community members who know how to take care of them, know the signs of what should be done and how objects should be treated. So with that kind of intro, I want to jump into archaeology in the community. Okay. So archaeology in the community was established 16 years ago. And its objectives were to increase community awareness about the benefits of archaeology history through public events, to provide archaeology enrichment programs to students of all ages, to provide professional development to college students interested in pursuing careers in archaeology, and to partner with educational institutions, cultural establishments, community organizations to develop, promote, and implement archaeological projects. So I'll start by giving you a few ideas of just some of the things that we've done. We've been around for 16 years, so there is quite a bit we have done. But these are just some of the programs that I want to touch on. So under archaeology education programs, we have the Young Archaeologist Club. The Young Archaeologist Club is structured where we meet with students. It's free to anyone in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. All the parents have to do is sign them up. What we've done is change the format a little bit, where we would just have a 6-week program, which means we could only have 25 students for 6 weeks. We've since changed that format so that we could reach more students. So what we do is we have a couple days of intro to archaeology, and that's like the prerequisite to attend any of the other programs. But we want to make sure all of our students have a baseline understanding of what archaeology is. Then they can attend specialty courses after that. So you can do archaeology in toys, you can do archaeology in food, you can do zooarchaeology. So it's all these specialized programs where students basically sign up to learn about these specific topics. And we found this as a way that we could reach way more students, but students are a lot more engaged because it's topics that they're interested in and they care about. We also have a program with the Girl Scouts. As many know, the Girl Scouts get an archaeology badge. So this established partnership allows us to help troops who are trying to get their archaeology badge, but also reaching a different population of students that sometimes what we recognize is their troop leader will actually kind of lead it or create something. But this is allowing them access to real archaeologists so they can talk directly with us. We also do Jack and Jill programs. Jack and Jill is a private organization of moms that have different programs every month, and each month plans a different program. And so the different chapters within the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area reach out to us, and we generally do 2 to 3 programs within the year with the different chapters. Sometimes we go back and the parents just asked us to adjust it to a different topic. So it might have been one parent was interested in food, another parent might be interested in zooarchaeology and animals. And it just kind of flows along with what they come up with. We also do free school programs. When I first started AITC 16 years ago, being very transparent, I was concerned about the public education system and the stats that were coming out in the area about science specifically. And I thought offering these programs to schools, also realizing the limitation, we didn't have very much money within the school systems. Teachers didn't have a lot of access to things. So me going in, which freed up a teacher for a classroom period, but also making sure that the students learned archaeology is about people, not dinosaurs. It would often be interesting when I walk into a classroom, the teacher will have had the students read a whole book on dinosaurs. So this also enabled that I could dispel some of the myths that not only the teachers had, but the students had about what archaeology was. And this is what was one of our like base programs that started and really flourished in the area. But it also allowed us to be able to help and assist. And the teachers would do the same thing when they requested the courses. They would say, this is what we're studying either in social studies or this is what we're studying in science. Can you apply what you're talking about that to it? And so we would tailor it as well. Our virtual programs came into play with COVID. And we started to realize how much of a need there was for varying forms of education. And I think out of COVID also came the understanding of homeschoolers and their need for different educational programs. So when we do our Young Archaeologist Club, we also offer a couple virtual programs. So one of our big things with our mission is to make archaeology accessible to all. And we do that very much through these virtual programs. We have had international students in the past who have also signed up for our virtual archaeology club. But one of the things that we're super proud of on our education arm is our lesson plans and curricula. So we have partnered with a number of organizations in order to create very robust curriculum. The Greenwood one, we partnered with an archaeologist based out of Oklahoma, and it was funded by National Geographic. So this actual program is completely funded by National Geographic and is actually featured by one of their explorers. It has 9 lessons in it. It goes all the way through. It's Common Core standards, so any teacher can kind of pick it up. It also meets Oklahoma school standards, so any teacher can pick it up and kind of roll with it. It's a full PDF with all of the worksheets, the lessons, the lesson plans. It even has videos included from descendants from Greenwood as well that goes along with it. The Kalorama Park one, we were able to get a grant from the Argosy Foundation. And so we very much wanted to do one on DC where we're based. And so we featured Kalorama Park, the history of it. We worked with the city archaeologists to get the archaeological reports and all of the information. And we had this one not only in line with Common Core, which means any school that uses Common Core within the United States, and that's 26 states and the territories use Common Core, can use this lesson plan for 3rd or 5th grade, but we also had it aligned with DCPS. So DCPS could also use it. And then the Ancient Nubia curriculum. We partnered with ASOR, which is an international archaeology organization that focuses on North Africa and Middle Eastern archaeology. And this one is super big. We created it right at the tail end of COVID. And so one of our thoughts was we saw the need for virtual digital where teachers don't have to learn anything. But we also were like, well, let's just plan for the future in case we all end up on another lockdown. Let's just have something. So the cool thing about this is it actually comes with a 2-part video. And the video features archaeologists, nubiologists, archaeomusicologists made the whole score, and a zooarchaeologist. So they're all archaeologists or archaeological based scholars. And all of the images, everything in it are real artifacts from ancient Nubia. And so we align this because we know in world history, and when people are talking about like the different areas of the world, you'll oftentimes see just Egypt or ancient Egypt featured. You never see Nubia. And so this was like a way to shine a light on that whole region without just being like Egypt, but seeing how these regions all work together and how they developed into each other. So this is a 200-page PDF. It has the worksheets, it has lesson plans, it has lesson plans that have activities with it, it has modules. So it was a pretty robust project that we created with this one. Outside of these, which are very place-based, we have general ones. So we have for math teachers 2 lessons on math. So how you can use archaeology and math. We wanted to figure out ways to start to incorporate other. So when teachers get, I don't know how much y'all know about, some teachers get bonuses from partnering with other subject matter teachers. So we thought that if we just armed the math teachers with lesson plans, this is something they can go to the social studies or to the science teachers. And it's pretty low-hanging fruit where they can combine together and make a curriculum. They also get bonuses for this, so it's like a win-win. One of the other things that we take very serious at AITC is internships, mentorship, and training. And so, like I said, it's one of our objectives. So we have a slew of interns that come through the organization. We also have currently an intern / part-time employee who was one of our original middle school students. So they were trained with us on archaeology as a young archaeology club member. And they then, once they aged out, volunteered with us, and now they're in college. And so they're still working with us, and they help do the virtual Young Archaeology Club lessons. But in the past, we've had college interns, we've had graduate students. I've had professors reach out because their students wanted to do community-based archaeology, and we've partnered where they could create a research project in conjunction with AITC and basically kind of use us as the training ground with somebody who knows what they're doing to run the program. For 7 years, we partnered with Montpelier and ran a teacher training course, and it would be for 1 full week. All the teachers would come out to Montpelier. We do a combination of, they would excavate in the morning and then be in the classroom with me, learning how to integrate archaeology into their lesson plans. Then they would switch in the morning and be in the lab, and it would be the same thing in the afternoon. We'd learn a different lesson plan. Then we would have conversations about, kind of getting them to look at what archaeological sites are in your area and what archaeological sites in your area represent your student populations. Because making sure students feel seen, which is often something that's concerning with teachers, is kind of going through with them, like just picking a random archaeological site doesn't oftentimes appeal to students. But if you can pick one that does appeal to them, that they are interested in, they tend to be more excited about it. So just kind of going through that whole process with them for a straight week. And then making sure they took plenty of pictures, because it's also one thing to tell your students you dug and you did archaeology. It's a whole nother to have like a reel or like a slow-mo video that you can show them in pictures, because then it makes it all that much more real for them and tangible to see one of their teachers also doing this. And then the last thing that we started last year, and this is our 2nd year of doing it, is our brush up workshops. And this is a combination of every other month we hold a workshop, and it's for the lay public as well as archaeologists. So everybody is brushing up on something. So we have different topics that range this month, or actually next week rather, or wait, which one? Yeah. Next week, the lesson is all for classroom teachers. So we have 2 classroom teachers who are in our teacher training who do archaeology lessons. We're holding a brush up for classroom teachers on how to integrate archaeology into their lessons. I did one similar, but for archaeologists, because archaeologists don't know how to talk to children. So doing a whole program on language and vocabulary and classroom management. So when they're hosting programs or going into classrooms, they know. Trying to think, we've done one for disabilities, for how to think about people with disabilities within the field of archaeology. So it's more of a professional training for archaeologists and people running firms on disabilities and archaeology. So our programs really fluctuate in the topics, but we have them that way so that we can reach everybody, and it gives everybody an opportunity to learn something new or just brush up on something they knew about but didn't quite know about. And the cool thing is everybody gets a certificate from it. So if you are looking for PD, professional development credits, it is one that you'll be able to get a certificate to show that you attended this training. And then kind of our last big thing that we focus on is our community programs. And to be very transparent, when the company started out, it really was just focused on a very narrow view of education. And within that view was training youth and training college students, and helping them kind of do this labor. But literally what slowly started to come about was community members and adults for the most part were like, hey, we also need these resources, we also need things. So let's see how this works, because we didn't try this out. But one of our projects we just finished is Africa Town in Mobile, Alabama. So the Smithsonian actually reached out to us to partner with them to do community archaeology in Africa Town. And one of the things came in was a lot of listening to community members, a lot of conversations, a lot of talks, and let's see how this works. Okay, you can't see that. So let me try and stop. I'm gonna stop sharing for a second. Just so I can share this next page with you. Okay. So this is one of the latest projects that we helped develop. Let me see the full screen so you can see. It was the Africa Town Cemetery Project. The community members said to us, hey, look, we want to document our cemetery. It's a very unique situation where Old Plateau Cemetery is on one side and New Plateau is on another. Old Plateau gets a lot of fame from Netflix just had the movie Descendants, as well as Zora Neale Hurston's book, Bakaroon, is based on people buried in this cemetery. And so one of the things that happened is New Plateau basically was kind of not getting focused on because it's, well, been recently dead of the same community. The other issue here was in attending community members, community meetings. And when I say I go out and listen to the community, I don't hold town halls. I tend to see when you ask people to come to town halls, they don't care to talk to you. So what I would do is attend local community meetings and listen to what the problems were. And I had one in particular that was extra spicy, where the local senators had a meeting. And the way the community ripped into those senators and some of the things they were saying helped me understand and put in context the old versus the new. And one of the problems were media and people kept putting the story out of Africa Town, where this particular town was only based on the people who were enslaved on this boat on the Clotilda. It never talked about the people who were enslaved there and the people that married into the families and everything else. and the community members who were living there before then. So there was a whole part of the narrative that kept getting omitted, and it was done again with Nat Geo, and it was done again. So what I said was, I'm not repeating this. I'm not gonna make this mistake. So in the development of this project, when they said we want the cemetery to be documented, the first thing I went to my co-collaborator and said, we gotta document both of them together as one. We gotta bring the whole community story together and keep the whole community so in doing this, we were very intentional, like even in the write-ups, it's the plateau cemeteries together. This is the cemetery. So we basically, let's see if you see. I want to be able to show you okay. So I'm gonna try and zoom out a little bit just so you can get an idea. We spent the better part of a year and a half going down to Mobile, and what we decided to do was, this is preposterous for archaeologists to document all of this. That's a lot of money. The Smithsonian was funding it, but not that much money. So instead, what we did was we made this a citizen science project. We made an app through Esri. I put up in little those little libraries at every church in the community. There are 5 churches in this community, and in it had, if you look, you see the clipboards here. It had clipboards, it had chalk, it had erasers, and on the back of this clipboard, it's kind of hard to see, but it's paper. We actually hooked on directions on how to do every step of documenting. So basically, what ended up happening is, as each person was walking around, they could document a person, and all of the information would be placed here. Pictures, how big it was measured out, if it was damaged, all of the inscriptions on it, everything. And one of the things that kept being told to us is, this is in a flood zone. So they fully expect, and when it rains really hard, you can kind of see in the graves behind this, how the grass is growing up and the dirt, they flood. And so they were worried that you would never be able to find people in like 5 to 10 years. So this is one way that they're documented. But the other cool thing about this is it's a preservation management system. If somebody's grave has a hole in it, if it has, people can actually go back to this, and it's free, and anybody in the world can search the cemetery. But if people want to donate money, people want to find out how many burials have the vaults are messed up, somebody wants to write a grant, you can actually query this database and figure out there are 200 graves that have holes in it, they need new cemetery vaults. So when we write for a grant, we got to do a cost analysis for that many burials, and that's one. So this was one way that we were able to contribute and help this community out. Another, I'm going to try and go back. Here we go. Another issue that kept coming up is archaeologists, like I said, we tend to do papers, we tend to talk about our work, but we don't tend to go back to the communities and do it. So we wanted to change that, where this is one of the places where if you present, if you do work, if you do anything, you are to send a copy to us, and we add it to the hub. So Maddie, who is a graduate student at UCLA, gave a paper, and we have a copy of it here. So the community themselves can see what archaeologists are saying about them. We put past archaeological surveys, we even put the GIS information in here. Anything that's ever been written or done, we have, the people have access to it. So this was another way of creating a repository of this information that was accessible to the public. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing and jump back in again. All right. So then another project that we worked on that was community-based that we were reached out to about was the Freedmanstown Heritage Training Project. And this one was truly unique. This was really different in that an organization that I had already been working about knew the work that AITC has done, and they basically decided to write for a Mellon grant that they got and to incorporate us in it to do heritage training. And this was a situation where the city of Houston did not have the money or the resources to properly clean and preserve these historic bricks that had been taken out of this community. And they didn't have the archaeologists to actually come in and separate out. So it was like a two-pronged project that lasted 2 months, where AITC employees went into Houston, and we basically, with a team of 17 unhoused youth. So the project was to train unhoused youth and give them actual job skills. So all of these youth after this project are able to do professional industrial power washing. They're able to do it on historic structures as well as just smaller brick structures as well. So they got a certificate out of this program for that, which also allows them to be able to get construction jobs. 2 of the students did get jobs right out of this program because of the city seeing how hard they worked. One of them was hired by the city, another was hired by another project. But basically we spent 2 months. They learned about brick typology, and we learned the hard way. It was 36,000 bricks that we had to go through and by hand separate out which were the historic versus which were bricks from other areas in the city of Houston. After which we cleaned all of them and repalletized them so that they could be stored for 2 years until the actual project takes place, where the city is going to re-brick one of the streets that they had destroyed in Freedmanstown by placing the bricks back down. So these are just some of the examples of the things we do. We also partnered with a local cemetery here in Maryland, the Morning Star Tabernacle number 88, Order of Moses. And what we did with them is their mission as they were developing, they were going through the process of fighting the expansion of 495. I think all of us remember that was one of the promises of Hogan a couple years back. Well, the problem with the expansion was it was going to expand itself into the cemetery. And so they started kind of galvanizing and working together. And as they were going through their 501c3 process, one of the things they did come to us, because we had worked with them once before doing one of our young archaeologist clubs in the cemetery to kind of raise awareness about the cemetery, but also teach students in that particular lesson how to do cemetery documentation. We later ended up becoming a fiduciary sponsor for them for a grant that they wanted to receive, and partnering with them on a project to help get plans drawn up on how to preserve and fix up the cemetery. So it's another way in which it falls under kind of that two arm of, in doing sustainable archaeology, it's also social justice. So helping them preserve their space so that, you know, they're able to fight against 295 and expansion, of which they did. So for anybody from Maryland, they were able to block the expansion. So whenever the new drawings come out, it is recognized that they cannot go through. And on top of that, part of the cemetery extended into the right of way. So when you talk about, let me just show you. I did put a picture in here just so you could kind of see. Oh, there it is. To show you kind of how egregious, this is the cemetery and this is our current highway. Not 295, 495, I'm sorry. But what we found out later from GPR, so for any of our techies in here, is that the actual graves extended into the right-of-way that state of Maryland. So state of Maryland, if they had expanded, even if they said we were just gonna abut your property line, which is the red, there were graves that were found through GPR on the right-of-way. And so as of 2 weeks ago, they just started the process of doing a quick deed, the state of Maryland, to give that property back to the cemetery as well. So I just wanted to show you this just so you could get an idea for some of the things we do. But also how community archaeology is also sustainable archaeology, and how we at AITC approach the programs that we work with, the programs that we create, the programs that we facilitate. So I'm going to stop sharing. And I wanted to open it up for questions.
I have a question.
Mhm.
First of all, that was impressive. I didn't know anything about community archaeology, and that was a very good primer. It's really vast in the different areas you can approach. I'm impressed by that. In the very, very beginning of your talk, you talked about when you approach a community, you discuss with them what they want to find and what they don't want to find. And that gets into a real political realm as an archaeologist, doesn't it? I mean, can you give me an example of a group that didn't want to find something? And how do you avoid finding things a group doesn't want to find?
So I think finding, it may not be the best word. I think advertising or reporting out. So you have communities that are very much embarrassed by certain aspects of their history. And so what they'll do is they will, as you're uncovering things, because as you start to do a deep dive in history, there are different histories and stories that have been purposely hidden that sometimes come to light. There'll be different, and you discuss that with them. Like, how do you want us to approach this? And I guess on a lighter side, we'll try. You could have it where we're doing research and we find that maybe one member of the family was a Rolling Stone, and there is a whole nother family uncovered in another side. And so now there's stakeholder group, there's their conversation. How do you want us to approach this? And they're going to also find out. So how do we come together, and how do we, when we tell this story, how do you want that story told? How do you want it to come out? Is this something that we avoid altogether? Is this something that doesn't even have to do with our research, so we may not be able to talk about it? Or so it's those kind of delicate things that come up. Now it gets way more political. The Mobile, Alabama one is one that was uber political. And it's a very interesting situation where a lot of the very wealthy families that still own the land around were the enslavers of the community that is doing everything. And so just being careful about narratives and how you put out things and say things. And there's a very big political fight in that area with the paper company being right there actively polluting. So now archaeologically, based on the new NEPA regulations and government regulations, we can't actually report out on pollution. So we have to be careful not to talk about that aspect anymore of the harm the paper company is doing. Because that's not something that should be heard. So funding also plays a big deal in how we report and talk. So yeah, it's lots of politics that go into this. And lots of navigating, being patient, being very respectful. I like to try and bring all parties to the table when I can, and if not, then I tend to bounce between the parties, and let everybody know that I'm doing this. So even in, we have a exhibit that's coming out that AITC partnered with the Mobile County Training School. So we actually wrote the Monument Lab grant to put an exhibition into the Mobile County Training School because this is something that the Alumni Association wanted. There is arguing that stems from high school amongst the Alumni Association. So navigating between personalities that even though you're 80, you still don't like this person. And everybody in the whole
Right.
community knows it. So even navigating where I come off as neutral, and I try to talk to all parties and I make sure that everybody knows that I'm not picking one group over another. This is just what it is. So
Yeah.
it comes in
Great
different.
answer. Thank you. Be a little bit of a negotiator and a social worker, as well as an archaeologist.
If you're good at it, you are. Very personable. I do lots of dinners, teas, coffees, and sitting on porches as well.
Yep. Yep.
Are there any other questions?
I have a question. What caught your enthusiasm? How did you develop an interest in community archaeology? And how old were you? And what were forces that impacted your development and curiosity?
So full disclosure, I did not get into archaeology till college. And it was mostly because I wanted to be a medical doctor. And I failed biology 3 times, like not kind of full on Fs. And my mother put her foot down while I was in college and said, anthropology. She worked at the Smithsonian. And so she's like, you like science. I had straight A's in history, which is the only reason why I never got kicked out of college. So my history courses were keeping me afloat. But she said, try anthropology. And it completely changed my life. That very next summer, I went on my first excavation. I have never looked back. My grades went all the way up, so I did graduate, thankfully, with a 3.7. Um, but I've absolutely been in love with archaeology. What I will say is I took courses at AU. So after doing undergraduate, I took a couple, I decided to get my master's in history. I took a couple courses at AU at night in archaeology, but I had problems with the theories and how it was being put out. I didn't exactly agree with how archaeology was being done then. To be honest, it just didn't make sense. And so it was a lot of like weird othering and like extractive, and we're going to study the objects but not the people, which I never quite understood. How do you study things of people without the people? And then when I got to Berkeley for my doctorate, that's when I started to take more courses and I got introduced to public archaeology. And I was like, yeah, this is cool, but this is not going far enough. Public brought people in, but public was top heavy, meaning it was established by like the National Park Service. It was, we're going to tell you what's important. We're going to tell you why it's important. These are the important places to study, which seemed to still be missing a whole bunch of people's stories, missing a whole bunch of things. And so as I kind of went through for my own dissertation, what I wanted to do was very community involved. I didn't want to be telling people what they should do. I wanted to, and so during my graduate study, I kind of started to form, which was the beginnings and the buddings of kind of community archaeology for me. And I've just been developing it nonstop since then. So weirdly enough, I am one of the people in our field who's like at the pinnacle of community archaeology, and the projects that I do are probably some of the most avant-garde and pushing the envelope type projects that are out there, and they're so diverse, which is the other thing that people have a very narrow view of what archaeology is and what it can become and what it can do. And I'm always trying to push how it's viewed among people, and trying to push um, it, doing it in a creative way, but then includes the people. Like, I want the people involved. I mean, the objects are cool. The problem is we have no place to put the objects anymore. People aren't preserving the objects adequately anymore. Like, we're having financial issues on the back end. So what can I do to creatively solve some of this where it's also making it accessible to people and it's not just sitting on shelves anymore? And so those are some of the things that I've kind of been using AITC to kind of do on our community program side.
Well, it's
Great.
very impressive. Thank you.
Question,
Mhm.
and you might have already covered it, but how do you get these amazing leads on so many projects? Like, I can think, and I'm not going to start naming them, but there's some things around here that I'm like, oh my goodness, this is a fertile ground for community archaeology or exploration, which this is the first time I really have heard of community archaeology in this way. And when you started showing cemeteries and thinking of the history of people, it just, how do you get leads, or how do you, connect to choose those projects? Do they come through organizations, or that's pretty much it?
So it's a two-prong. I think our reputation precedes us, which is the big thing. A lot of communities hear about what we've been doing and what we've been involved in, and they started kind of the whisper network, where they just whisper to each other. The other thing I often tell people, unfortunately, is we're a nonprofit. So funding, we can kind of jointly work on some stuff. Like, I was already in Mobile, and the Alumni Association kept saying they wanted this project, and I was like, let me see what I can do. I can't promise you anything, but I'm gonna write for this big grant and we'll see if it happens. It just so happened, it happened. So that worked out. I normally don't write the grants. Normally we have grants that do that. And then they just seek us out as a partner in the granting process. And so we do it that way. But yeah, we just have people reach out to us, and if we can do it and if we can help, we try to find a way.
Thank you. That's really amazing. There's a couple of questions in the chat. Jeff asked, I'm sorry if it was covered, but is a big complication the fact that this is a cemetery and not excavating a house or something of that sort? And I think that was in regards to the Old Plateau and New Plateau Cemetery.
Oh, no, the complication was the whole community. So Africatown has a very rich heritage, but only one part of the community was being featured instead of the whole community. And just to highlight, the school that's located there is a Rosenwald school. So, and it's the oldest African American school in the state of Alabama that is still in use. And it's the first African American in school in this region of Alabama. So all of their history and heritage, but it was founded by a number of people. And so trying not to get lost the history and heritage of the whole community, and by them only focusing on Old Plateau, the complication was they weren't focusing on everybody's story and how everybody contributed, because they actually have some of the first baseball members of African American Baseball League players come out of this school. So there's like all this history of people from this region. The wealthiest African American man came out of this area of Plateau. So there's a lot of stories that aren't getting told because they're being overshadowed by slavery. And so that's kind of what I hope that answered your question. Now, as far as Native American artifacts, we have sites that do have Native American history, and we do identify it. So for the Greenwood, in the Greenwood curriculum, we actually talk about the connection between the tribe and the people that were living in that particular area of Greenwood before it was established as a town. So that is one of the things that we address and that we talk about is the connection. I don't know if anybody's aware of the tribe there just gave tribal status to the people in that community. So it's the first time the community, their descendants who were enslaved by the tribe, but also married into the tribe, who were not given full tribal status. And the descendants sued the tribe, and it just passed that the tribal Supreme Court 3 weeks ago gave them full status. So for that site, we do address Native American. Most of our stuff that we do, we aren't actively excavating. So a lot of ours is on the educational side. If we do something with excavation, we're partnering with another archaeology firm or organization to do that. And then, or if it's not that, we're doing a mock excavation where we've actually created an above ground pit for kids with artifacts that we planted based around a theme for them. So we've done coronadas and tronada. I worked with the Zuni years ago, and it was gifted actual Zuni artifacts. So we do put those artifacts in it, as well as things that you would have found from the Spaniards coming in to Hauiku. So we have those in our pit. So we do stuff like that, but that is all mock.
Thank you. That's really interesting. I was wondering, I think you said it was a program called Ezra that you were using for cataloging all the graves. That
Archaeology.
it seems like a really great citizen science project. Is there a way that, and it seems like you made a really good template to let people know how to use it. Is it something that you're interested in making available for other communities to take on and do on their own for graveyards in their areas that also might be in floodplains or in danger of being disrupted?
Yeah, so the problem with ArcGIS is the subscription. There is a free version, and as a matter of fact, Beth, are you still in here? Because I think we have one coming up with ASOR, where they're going to actually train people on a free version how to do cemetery documentation.
Hey, I'm still here. We don't have it on our website yet, but we're planning to have that one in February.
So February of next week.
Yeah, because we really want people to be able to use these free versions.
Great, thank you.
So kind of keep that on your radar. If you have a grave in your community, he's gonna show you how to create a version through a free. And I'm always trying to push people to the free because no one has the capacity to just sustain indefinitely a membership or a subscription. And Jeffrey, yes, you're absolutely right. That's why we did, there is a problem with graves not being identified. So if you remember in the map, they're polygons. We actually did GPR. So there are quite a few graves that are not, that don't have markers on top, but we did GPR and we did a polygon around them. So they are identified on the map without any information. The only exception was I tried my best to do due diligence, which New Plateau had their cemetery book, and it's a notebook written in pencil. And I tried my best to go through it and line up everything that we were finding with what they found. So there was an occasion where I was able to put a name to a polygon that you can no longer see on the surface. So that it is known for some people that this person is buried here. But you're absolutely right. That's a real issue. Absolutely. And GPR is not 100% accurate, which especially with older graves. So within the cemetery in Maryland, they did the ground penetrating radar to identify where the burials were. And there's so many kind of like anomalies. There's some that they were like, this is definite. And then there's possible and there's maybe. So you do have those sort of situations that pop up as well. Any other questions? All right.
For the specialized programs that you teach for students and younger kids that join your sort of archaeology club, so to speak, how long are those? And are they sort of scattered all over the state, or are they mostly focused in the DC area?
So it varies. What we realized was Maryland has the transit problem. And one of our big issues is making archaeology accessible. And so trying to have it located next to a metro station for parents who don't have cars or for students that would have to take the metro themselves was always one of our issues. So for years we had it right there at Catholic University and it was directly across the street from the metro. So parents could give. The other thing is we wrote in, we had a grant for 5 years. We actually gave metro cards to parents and students. So if you couldn't afford to get here, we're going to give you a Metro card. This way we ensured that everybody was able to get there and could be present. The only thing we asked was for the smart card back at the end of the program. We did it in Hyattsville for 1 year, and it was 6 weeks. So this was under our 6-week program where it was every Sunday. We ran into a lot of issues because we found a location. It was great. It was beautiful, not easily accessible. And we lost a lot of parents because of that accessibility issue and not being able to get to us. So this go round, we switched it up just a little bit, and we did it where we met 8 different times, and we met at in every ward in DC at a public library. This public library is on the Metro line and easy to get to. And depending on which library you're at, it's close to the Maryland line or close to the Virginia line. So it also allowed everybody to be able to get to us. And those were the ones that were theme based. So this is the first year we kind of did the theme based ones where you sign up based on your themes. And it also allowed us to reach more students than our set 25 students for 6 weeks. So we try to get out, but it's always the transportation issue that we realize. And us trying to reach as many students as possible. It seems that parents coming from Virginia or Maryland could always do the metro, if nothing else. But putting it in locations where it wasn't easily accessible to a metro was the problem.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense in our area because we definitely have limitations on our public transit, especially in Baltimore.
But on that note, we do come out when asked. So when different organizations ask us, we have, there's a school in Delaware that taps us every summer. So we drive up to Delaware and do a 2-hour program with their kids, like 2 days in a row. I've definitely come out to Baltimore multiple times to do programs with a public school in Baltimore. So we're not adverse to coming to our students and our population because again, our biggest thing is making sure everybody has access to. But yeah, that's just the problem with asking folks to come in.
Can I ask you what current projects you're working on with any communities?
Yeah, so we are the opening of the exhibition in Mobile. It opens officially on September 24th. So we're still doing the behind the scenes. To give you an idea, that was a multi-year project where AITC created a 1-week program with 6th graders at Mobile County in conjunction with a curator. And so it was a class all on how archaeology leads to curation, leads to museum studies. We took a field trip to the Heritage Museum, which actually is directly across the street from the school. They just opened the Heritage House there a year and a half ago. So we took a trip over there. The director gave them a tour so they could have a tour of that. We talked about underwater archaeology as well as terrestrial. The Mobile History Museum, they agreed to clean the collections for the Alumni Association. So they came in, brought all the memorabilia and stuff that they were cleaning to teach the kids about curation and what the artifacts are going to look like. And the end product was the kids did the storyboards for the curator that was used as the background design to create this exhibition panel. So we had a professional do it all out. The fabricator went down. So the actual panels are hung. Right now, we're waiting on the creation of the case. So they have a traditional uniform they all used to wear. So 2 women in the community made replicas of the male and the female uniform. So that's going in. We have different display cases. 2 of the women donated their class rings, and all of that's being discussed. But one of the interesting things is that the school started out as a middle school and a high school. And then the high school ended up getting cut once segregation hit, and it stayed as a middle school. So there's this huge history of like all the cool clubs they used to have and social clubs that the middle school kids don't have and don't see. So all of that is being chronicled in this exhibition so that the middle school kids can learn about the history of their school and all the things that used to happen, like the bands and everything else. So it's pretty cool, but we're waiting on that to finish. And that's what I've been working on, going back and forth with them. And then I want to pop down like a week early and do a program with the 6th graders where I take them through and do like a soft, and we talk about and revisit these ideas of archaeology and what the artifacts look like and how all of this kind of coordinates.
That's great. I really love that you take them from like the baseline step of doing the research all the way to designing a museum exhibit and how you present it to the public. Because I think that's really important to have that whole broad spectrum.
And then our biggest thing is to introduce career paths. I mean, not many of us, like, you know what a museum is, but no one actually says, you too can be a curator. And these are all the jobs in it. And you can also be an archaeologist. And this is how you get to this. So it was also kind of a 2-prong to teach them about career paths and teach them about a profession that's in their own community, which is there is this museum right there that's all on the history and heritage of the community. So this is something that you can go to, University of South Alabama for and come back and work in your own community. Yes, any more questions?
Well, thank you so much. This was really exciting to learn about all the work that you've been doing. I also did not know very much about sustainable archaeology and all of the different components that go into it. And this was great.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And I definitely look forward into looking into some of your brush up classes as you offer them.
Yes, please, please, please. And if you're ever interested in volunteering, we love volunteers. So definitely check out the website for information about that as well. So, well, thank you, everybody.